are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans. Welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. As you can see from the caption here, feel free to call me Sully. This show is being dropped on the final day of August 2021. And if your team is still in contention today, congratulations. You officially have had a nice summer. This show is available on the free and easy-to-use Odyssey app, and we're also available wherever you get your podcasts. If you have a smart device, be sure to tell it to play podcast Locked On MLB, or check out some of the other great shows on the Locked On Podcast Network, including Locked On Fantasy Baseball with Scott Cullen or Locked On A's with Jason Burke. Funny, I should mention that. If you want to follow us on Twitter, you can follow us at Locked On MLB Pod, same handle for Instagram. You want to follow me, I'm your pal Sully on Twitter. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter. Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Well, this is being dropped on the final day of August 2021. We're actually recording this a couple of days beforehand because I wanted to get the fresh, raw thoughts of the host of Locked On A's, which would be Jason Burke. And he is giggling right now because this is take 3. Because of some technical problems, take 3 with Jason Burke. In fact, that's going to be what I'm going to name this episode. It's going to be Third Time's a Charm with Jason Burke, host of Locked On A's. How you doing, buddy?
I'm fine. How are
Hey, don't tempt. Don't tempt the gods. Don't tempt the Zoom gods.
I'm doing great, Sully. Thank you for having me, man.
Oh my God, yeah. Just you froze there. You froze there. There you go.
Oh no.
You're back. You're back. Yeah,
yeah.
We have to keep moving. We have to be. You're to honor our Silicon Valley hockey team. We have to be sharks. We have to be sharks because we're constantly moving.
Or else
By the
we
way,
die.
I have to say that just totally tangential. It's not Locked On Sharks, but I adopted the Sharks for the little bit of time I followed the NHL. I confess I'm not a big NHL fan anymore. I like watching hockey. I just don't have the bandwidth to have another sport to follow. But for a period of time, I really, when they had like Teemu Selanne and they had, they had, Thornton. They had a bunch of great players that were really fun to watch on that team. Ricci was on that team. And I had a lot of fun following that team. They got to I believe they got to the Western Conference semifinals, and then they lost, and they a couple of times there, and it was very
time, yeah.
Well, this was the early 2000s. This was the early 2000s,
Gotcha.
And it was always, and I was living in New York. It was always very confusing to people because I was rooting for the Red Sox as a diehard, native New Englander, and I always loved the Celtics. And they said, "Oh, you're a big Bruins fan." I said, "No, Sharks." But I was living in the Bay Area when the Sharks were formed, and I figured I've never rooted for a team from the advent of their expansion. So I thought that'd be an interesting thing. This is a little sideline, but I figured I'd talk about it with you. I don't know if you follow the Sharks at all a lot or anything.
I did for a long time, and then being an A's fan and following the A's consistently, I could not do both teams because they would make it to the playoffs and then break your heart in the worst way possible. And I need that time off throughout the year to, recuperate and go full bore into one. I can't do it year round.
It's fair enough. I have to say, when I worked in the tech world for a period of time, the Sharks were always popular in the tech world because they were the closest team in terms of the Silicon Valley. It was sort of like they were in San Jose, and all of us who had these, whether we were at Cisco or HP or all these companies that were close by, for whatever reason, that was there was always a big thing. Sharks were a big draw. Anyway, this is totally tangential here. This is what happens when you get Jason Burke on here. We wind up talking Shacks. What kind of shack? Tiger shark. That's right. I'm quoting Jaws all day. Hey, speaking of Jaws, the A's won. There's no segue right there. The A's were
They
about.
snatched it from the jaws of defeat.
Now you're talking. Right.
I mean, it was tied, but whatever. It's close.
Well, look at you could not enter this series colder than the A's were.
Mm-mm.
And the Yankees were playing at a pace that we hadn't seen since Roger Maris and Mickey Mantle were there. And, quite frankly, this looked like either the law of averages were going to catch up and the A's were going to win and the Yankees were going to lose, or it was going to be a disaster. And I'm not going to lie to you, after the first game, I thought this could be a complete disaster. It just did not look like the first two games was like, oh God, this team just is not going to pull it off. But hey, they split the series. And tell us what you think about the Sunday night game and what you thought about walking away with a split.
Going into the series, I was like, if they split, then they're treading water. We'll see what happens, I guess, because they're not really making any headway, but they're not necessarily going to be losing ground, depending on what happens around the league. You want 3 out of 4 or to sweep the series. And after Thursday, that was not going to happen. They lost that one, much like they lost all of the other games in the week previous in heartbreaking fashion in the 9th inning. It was not a lot of fun. But then they lose Fridays. And then the Saturday and Sunday matchups, you got Frankie Montas, who went 7 innings, gave up 2 hits. He's had 2 very, very strong consecutive starts against the San Francisco Giants, the best team in baseball, and the New York Yankees, who had their first 13-game winning streak since the 60s. He shut both of those teams down, went 7 innings in both, gave up 2 hits in each. He's been absolutely amazing. And so then you go to Paul Blackburn hoping for a series split. Who's Paul Blackburn? He hasn't been great in his time with the A's. And all of a sudden you're like, hey, Paul Blackburn, he's a different cat right now. He's got a 2.81 ERA against the White Sox, who are one of the better teams in baseball, one of the favorites to win the American League. And then also the Seattle Mariners, who are right on the A's heels and a playoff contender of their own right. And then the Yankees, who again are really hot right now. He shut down the Yankees. He's been fairly good. He's been improving in each start. So can they do it? I don't know. Are they going to be getting Chris Bassett back? I don't know, but something we'll see. I'm encouraged because we just had that big win on ESPN. And that's not usually what happens. The last week or month and a half, whenever the A's are in a close game like this, they lose. They just straight up lose. They don't come through in those big situations like we saw all night on Sunday. But then then they did. Tony Kemp, big 2-run home run. So we'll see if that's a game changer. But we'll
Kemp has, here's how who has been really good in a series is you see what opposing fans write on Twitter. And the great Stacey Gotsulis, the host of Lockdown Yankees, wrote something to the degree of, this Tony Kemp is a real pain in the ass.
Yes.
And so he kept coming up big, whether it was some great defensive plays or some big hits, and ultimately getting the big home run on the Sunday night game. It's funny. This is not a reflection necessarily on the announcers or anything on ESPN. I can't remember the last time I watched a Sunday night baseball game, but I always listen to a Sunday night baseball game. And and this is, I guess, a personal thing for me. This may be a residue of the truncated season because last year I couldn't watch. I couldn't watch with the empty stadiums and the cardboard fans, but I could listen to the games. When I listened to the games, I imagined the games in my head. And with those 60 games in the postseason, I've really loved listening as opposed to watching. And so tonight, I listened to the A's and the Yankees. I listened to Ken Korak and everybody call the game. And it was really, it was wonderful. And the 2 victories were dramatic. And I think more dramatic than I anticipated. The A's seemed pretty much in control of both games, and yet it was nail-biting time right to the end.
Yeah, the game on Sunday, you're like, okay, well, they got the little flare pop-up against Anthony Rizzo there, and it just pops out of Jan Gomes' gloves. He just wasn't paying attention, dropped it. You're like, well, they're about to tie the game right now, because that's how the A's season has been going all year. They make a mistake, the other team capitalizes no matter what. And then Anthony Rizzo hit one to Matt Chapman, who they were giving glowing reviews to on ESPN the entire night about how good his defense is. And his defense is really, really good. But it went right through the 5-hole, right through his legs. And that tied the game. And you're like, yeah, I guess we'll see who crushes the A's souls in this game. But it did not happen. Super excited. And the A's used their third different closer in 3 save opportunities. So is Andrew Chafin the closer now? I have no idea. Is it because Sergio Romo didn't do well on Saturday? He gave up that 2-run homer to Aaron Judge. Is that the case? I don't know. Are they just removed from Lou Trevino? There's a lot of questions. But this team has some pieces.
I talked about that on the Sunday podcast, that the fact that Sergio Romo got credited with a save just shows you how worthless the save stat is. If he pitched like that every game, he would have an 18 ERA. Okay. And yet that was a positive game for him because he only let up a 2-run home run that inning. When Judge hit that 2-run home run on this, was it the Saturday afternoon game? I was just like, well, there's no way the Yankees are going to lose this game. It just seems like that was the way it has gone. And
actually, your friend Stacey Gatsoulis was like, calm down, you guys still got this. And I was like, oh, that actually made me feel better because she's watched enough Yankees games to know, no, they're just flirting with us. They're not going to do it. It's fine. So that was nice.
Yeah, well, there's also, I adore Stacey Gatsoulis. There's a real chance that Stacey Gatsoulis was trying to prevent herself from feeling pain by acting like, no, we're going to be awful, we're going to be bad, and this, that, and the other thing. I want to talk to you quickly, and we're with Jason Burke. For those of you keeping score at home, Jason Burke is the host of Locked On Athletics. Follow the show at Locked On A's, where they follow you on Twitter. What's your Twitter handle?
By Jason B. Same as in Green Room.
All right, cool. Okay, if you were listening, if you were paying attention to the Green Room spot that we just did, the live read there, then lo and behold, there you go. Now, I got to tell you something, and this is something I was really thinking about during the game, more so in the game on Saturday, when the A's finally broke the winning streak by the New York Yankees. And that is, the A's are part of this American League, which has been absolutely impossible to nail down all season. And I've been saying this all year, and I've been right, that there is no runaway favorite in the American League. There is no one team that you look at and say, this team's heads and shoulders above everybody else. Every single team that has a legitimate shot to get into the postseason could get eliminated and swept in the division series, or could find themselves in the World Series. It's just about who happens to have those 2 weeks that are hot. And the thing that you've seen with each one of these teams, every time you think a team is clicking and everything's working on and firing on all cylinders, they go on a slump. And every time you think this team is falling apart, they're a disaster, they go on a winning streak. And the ebbs and flows and the tides of this year have been insane. None have been more whiplash inducing than what happened with the Yankees, who went from being 500 on the July 4th and going on this massive run. But you take a look at the A's, who started the year as horrifically as you possibly can by going, they started the season 1-7 and looking horrible. And then they went on like a 12-game winning streak or something insane. They were
13-game win streak, Alex.
Yes, 13. Okay, fine. And so they went from looking like, oh my God, are these minor leaguers, to, oh my God, let's forget the Scott Hatteberg home run. And this whole year they've been, the A's are falling apart. Oh, the A's won 5 in a row. Oh, the A's are falling apart. Oh, the A's won 5 in a row. And just in freaking August, they went on was it a 7 or 8 game winning streak? It was something.
I think it was 6 or 7. I don't actually.
Whatever.
It feels like forever ago.
Right, but it was up until August 12th. It was just 2 weeks ago that they were on a rampage and pulled to within a game and a half of the Houston Astros. And they looked up and said, they're going to play Texas. This is going to be a walk in the park. And they kept the games they kept losing, especially the games against San Francisco and against Seattle. They weren't getting blown out of the dump. They kept losing these one-run games, and a bloop here and a bloop there were not going their way. And so you're like, oh my God. I mean, those games, the brutal losses they had, the last two games against the Giants and the sweep, I guess it's 2-game sweep by Seattle, but still, those are razor thin games where they had leads late. And you look up to the A's lost again. So it wasn't like they were having the doors blown off the dump, but they kept, none of their luck was coming through. And a couple of weeks before, when they had back-to-back walk-off wins, and they had some blowout wins, but they had more extra inning wins against Cleveland, against San Diego, against Texas. And it was like, so a lot of it is the fortune fell on them for a little bit, and then it was bad. This has been the American League all year.
Mm-hmm.
And the A's are the poster children for that, which means they're either going to miss the playoffs or they're going to go to the World Series for the first time since 1990. I don't think there's a middle ground.
There is zero middle ground. And that's the thing is you mentioned all these heartbreaking losses. They're playing with good teams, but they're not getting that big hit. They completely outplayed the San Francisco Giants in Oakland just last weekend. They should have swept that series. They lost 2 out of 3. They outscored them for the series too, because everything was so close. One of the Seattle games, I think they lost 5-1 on Tuesday, but the other one, another heartbreaking, not because they were at home, but
I watched the game. That the one of them was a 2-1 game, and the other was they blew the lead in the 9th inning.
Was it? I'm gonna have to double check this now.
Let's go to Baseball Restaurant for the Mariners scored 3 runs in the 9th.
Yeah, no, I think that was the Monday game, and then on Tuesday they did Tuesday 5-1.
Tuesday 5-1.
Tuesday 5-1. Yeah, that one they weren't really close. That was just a regular loss, and so that was nice to get back to just regular.
Okay, I forgot. Okay, you're right. I conflated the 2 games. I forget, but here's the deal, though. That was a 5-1 loss, but it was 3-1 going into the 8th. Mm-hmm. So it was not like the Mariners pulled away a little bit towards the end, but the A's blew a bunch of chances in that game. Look, I don't mean to be pouring salt on the wound here, but I guess what I'm saying is that this whole year has been massive losing streak, massive winning streak, massive losing streak, massive winning streak. And this is one of the reasons why, I'm not going to claim to be wearing the green and gold and being one of those people banging the drum and waving the banners that have some sort of weird, very specific, like Chad Pinder Winder or something, like these people are the specific player flags that they had. But I think the A's are going to go on a winning streak, and especially when you look up and today they're going to start a series with
Detroit.
Yeah,
but Detroit's been really good. They're not a gimme team like they have been the last couple of years. They're a solid bunch of dudes, but their offense, can they hang? If the A's can scratch out 5 runs, I think that they win, or maybe even 4 runs. So we'll see how this series goes. I haven't dug real deep into these numbers yet and how to attack each of these pitchers. But I mean, we'll see. They got to go 4-2, 5-1 this week against both Detroit on the road and then Toronto. So
yeah, I mean,
it's a big week.
You're right. Detroit, we got to give Detroit its due. I mean, first of all, I've been saying a lot, and Jeff Carr and I talked about this the other day. You can't say, oh, this is a bad team, so this is automatically going to be a bunch of wins. I mean, just look at how the Philadelphia Phillies season has been torpedoed by the Arizona Diamondbacks recently. So, and Detroit, this is a sign that maybe it wasn't all trash cans with A.J. Hinch, that the Detroit is developing a nice pitching staff. Detroit is developing a team that I think is maybe a year or so away. I don't think they have the offense yet, but they have more than one arm. They have a couple of arms that I think are, that's an intriguing person on the team. And I think they're more of like an 85 loss team as opposed to a 100 loss team.
Yes.
And I think
they've got money though. They can real quickly turn it around.
Right, but I think that they can really quickly turn it around if they have the foundation. If they built up like
Yes.
a nice foundation of 2 or 3 good pitchers in their staff, a couple of decent bats, then they can go spend money, to fill in the cracks. But I think that especially in a division, I think the White Sox are going to be good for the next few years, but they may not be a
Mhm.
juggernaut. Cleveland's pitching is phenomenal. They can't hit. Minnesota and Kansas City are both reclamation projects right now. There's room for a Detroit to
Mhm.
advance in the American League Central,
Yep.
especially if they keep developing their pitchers and some of the high draft picks they got could gel. And a team like that who wants to prove themselves, and Detroit's of course been a nemesis of the A's in the postseason in the 2010s, and for I guess 2006 as well, for that matter. But I'm sorry, I keep bringing it all up.
Why do I keep coming on these shows? They had me on Locked On today. They're like, "Hey, the A's and Yankees are playing. You wanna talk about whatever happens on the game?" I'm like, "Oh, they're gonna lose. Great. I know this now.
Yeah,
Why do I keep doing?"
show Jeter in the flip, show Jeter in the flip. Um, but I think that the A's are one of these American League teams that could get hot at the right time. But you can't look at a team like the Tigers or the Blue Jays for that matter.
Yeah.
Blue Jays, who just a few weeks ago I looked at them as the wild card contender that nobody wanted to face,
Mhm.
because if they got into the playoffs, God help you. But they've looked bad recently,
Yeah.
but that would worry me a little. It's sort of like, would they be a little bit on the upswing? So you have 6 games between Detroit and Toronto, all on the road before the big
Mhm.
3-game series with the Tony La Russa homecoming and the Chicago White Sox.
Yeah.
What do you want? I mean, I know you want 6-0,
Yes.
but short of that, what do you want in these 2 series?
5-1.
Hmm.
At 4-2, I think that we can live with moving forward and establish, win 2 out of 3 in both series. 5-1 would be great. It's can the A's score enough runs against the Detroit pitching, which has been fairly good, and their bullpen's not great, so maybe you got to attack the bullpen a little bit more. And then against Toronto, can they keep up with that offense? Because they've got some bats, but their pitching is a little bit behind where the A's are. And I'm going to have to look at, the starting pitchers for both of these series coming up. But, and as you're hearing this, it's Tuesday, but I'm recording this on Sunday. So it's not as close for me as it is for you. So yeah, I think that they got to go, they have to have a winning week. That's where we start. And then you start the rest of the win streak from there. Yeah, it's going to be tough, but they can do it. And you keep saying how you can't really, count out any team like the Diamondbacks ended the Philly season. The Texas Rangers have been a thorn in the A's side this season. Mike Foltynewicz, AL Cy Young contender as far as I'm concerned. He has been absolutely amazing because he figured out how to beat the A's, because the A's only hit solo home runs. They mentioned that on the ESPN broadcast. It's been a big talking point here in Oakland. He gives up home runs, but the A's only hit solo home runs. So he'll give up 3 homers, but he only gives up 3 runs in 7 innings. And all of a sudden, that's a good start for Mike Foltynewicz. And then the A's don't score any other runs. So it's just a matter of they got to get home runs with guys on base. They got to get hits with runners in scoring position. More than 0 a game, I think, is kind of the sticking point right now. And then maybe you see some more wins, and they could be a dangerous team if Bassett is healthy and you got him and Montas, and maybe if Manaea returns to form, you got a pretty solid starting 3 in your rotation. Is their bullpen as shut down as, the White Sox? Not necessarily, but they've got some guys that can get it done. The offense is the key right now for me. And you got to get going against Detroit and Toronto and see if you can roll that the rest of the way, I think.
Hey, everyone, it's your pal Sully, and I'm still here with, where's the caption? There it is, Jason Burke.
That's me. Boom.
Boom. Jason Burke of Locked On A's. Why does it say host of A's?
Host of A's.
Host of A's. I made a mistake on the caption there. Do you know what? Fine.
Excellent branding, Sully.
Oh, look at that. Yeah, that's right. Only the best. Only the best. Hey, That's me.
Oh, that's fancy. I want one of those.
There you go. I gotta get my fancy Sully on there. Get my fancy Sully. Hey, Jason Burke
Oh, wrong way.
of
That way.
the camera's over here. My eyes are here.
I was
My
looking at
eyes are
where you
here.
were on my screen. I need to get better at this.
I like to think you have a whole wraparound screen like Minority Report. You're just kind of like you're doing that around
Oh,
there.
that would make this so much easier.
Oh yeah. Oh man, dude. Locked on Minority Report.
Yes.
You wouldn't love that? I'd be all over that. I almost said a bad word. Hey,
Ooh.
speaking of bad words, the Oakland's bullpen.
Yeah.
The Trevino, is he? I mean, what's going on? I mean, Yusmeiro Petit is on pace to have 180 appearances this year out of
Yeah, he's really good.
162 games, and he's quite. He gives him an inning and an appearance. Um, you had mentioned your thoughts about the bullpen. I I really think the A's should start handling their bullpen the way Tampa Bay does, which is to completely ignore the save statistic
Mhm.
and just bring whoever happens to be the best one to go in. If it's Chafin, it's Chafin. If Petit's the best person to bring in, fine. There is no lockdown closer, and it drives me bananas when a team manages as if they had a lockdown closer. And uh, if you don't have one, don't manage like you have one. And there are years like specific, obviously Eckersley in his prime, and Rivera and Billy Wagner, and or the individual years like the year Brad Lidge was so dominant, or Koji Uehara was so dominant, or Brian Wilson was so dominant. If you have years, if you ride a hand like that, that's one thing. But if you don't have that, why are you going to hand the ball to someone as if it's automatic? Just use the best matchup. Because wouldn't that, in the end, get you the same result, or maybe even a better result, than if you handed someone, this is our anointed closer?
I mean, you just mentioned Eckersley and Rivera, who have two very memorable walk-offs against them in the World Series.
Yeah.
So even the best of the best do not do it. And I mean, it would be the way to do it, but I don't know that the A's necessarily have even the Rays bullpen. They have some solid guys, but Trevino, I know that he struggled with his last three outings. He's gotten 3 losses in his last 3 outings. And if he doesn't do that, there was a point in time earlier in the week, like a week ago, as you're listening to this, where the A's could have been in first place in the AL West if he had just locked down 3 saves. He didn't do it. Well, him and I guess Puck at on Sunday as well. But
Right.
regardless, he's been good for the most part. He's struggling right now. Do you make that switch? Maybe, because you need these wins now. I know that he's been good all season, and without him, after Trevor Rosenthal went down, without him performing like he has this season, if he is any other year Lou Trevino, except for his rookie year, they are not where they are currently. So
Right.
how much leash do you give somebody who's kept you in the race this long? They gave it to Sergio Romo on Saturday. He gave up that 2-run homer to Aaron Judge, and Romo's been pretty good after a really bad April. So his numbers aren't necessarily there for the whole season, but since April, he's been really, really solid. And then Andrew Chafin, he's another really solid lefty. Do you go with AJ Puck, who doesn't have a ton of big league experience, but he has explosive stuff? They've got options, is what I will say. They have options. Do I know which one they should use on a day-to-day basis? No. They should probably start playing matchups a little bit more. And then you got Diekman. He can go 7th, 8th, 9th if you want him to, but he's a little iffy with his command sometimes. He might work his way into some trouble. So you got to get him in the right situation, I think.
What's the story with Seth Brown?
He's up and down, both in the majors and minors and also at the dish. He's got a lot of power, doesn't get a lot of other hits, maybe doubles. Hits around 220. And if he's hitting home runs every at bat, then he's great. But if he's not, then he plays good defense. So that's nice.
I just when I open up the page, I was like, oh yeah, Seth Brown. I forgot about him. He has 16 home runs, and that's it. That's basically. I think he has 17 hits for the season, and 16 of them have been homers. There are people, and when you open up the page, you're like, oh yeah, Ramon Laureano. Where? And but Marte, I think, has been a absolute dream since coming over from Miami. Kemp has done everything you could possibly hope for him to do in that sort of super sub role. And Olsen continues to be a solid bat. Chapman, his glove today notwithstanding. The thing that I think is going to be helpful for the A's is, especially if Bassett comes back. I mean, is Bassett going to be, obviously we all saw the video clip of what happened. I don't want to, this is, I'm not morbid. I don't want to get into that, but what is his status right now?
He had surgery a week ago as you're listening to this on Tuesday in Chicago. He flew back to the Bay Area. He made an appearance on Saturday. The A's won that game. He also made an appearance in the A's clubhouse 2 days after he got hit in Chicago. The A's won that game. I think Chris Bassett coming back and being in the clubhouse, big boon for the A's. That's what I'm seeing right now.
So essentially
he's being around.
He's Stomper the mascot.
Yeah. I mean, they've won three of their last 4 wins have been because Chris Bassett has been around the team. They lost the other 6 in between. So that's kind of where you are with Chris Bassett right now. When is he going to return? Is he going to return? We don't necessarily know yet, but there was a quote that he had in one of the articles that I read. I'll say The Athletic because I like them, where he said they messed up because they being the doctors, because they said that I could be back in 2 weeks after surgery. And is that the actual timeline? Because we were hearing 6 weeks after he got hit for everything to be healed. So is he going to wear like a Rip Hamilton mask to go out and pitch? Is that allowed? So we don't necessarily know what his actual timeline is, but you know that he feels good and wants to go, but his eye's still not necessarily fully open. It's open, but not how much it usually is. So you would assume that you want his eye to be fully open before he's out there throwing baseballs again.
Most scouting reports have a desire to have the eyes open while they pitch. But even without Bassett, having a rotation of Montas, Manaea, Irvin, Caprillion, and now Blackburn, you would think that would mean you don't go on a long losing streak. By the way, I was at Bassett's complete game victory. That was in May, was it?
In May against the Angels, yeah.
Yeah, I was at that game with Dr. Dolph Pfefferbaum. We had a fun time together. That was the first ball game I went to since game 1 of the division series at Dodger Stadium. I digress. So the game 1 of the 2019 division series against the Washington Nationals. So look at it's another factor that's going to help the A's as they go, if they can play well against the Detroit Tigers in the upcoming games. There is one other factor that could loom very well for the Oakland A's chances, and that is the Red Sox are going to be playing Tampa Bay.
Yes. And
the Red Sox their bullpen is an absolute mess right now. And their offense has been weird. It's been the only way to describe it. It's been odd. They don't have Kiki Hernandez because of the COVID quarantine with him. JD Martinez, who had a huge home run the other day, got a couple big hits on Sunday, but has been hit or miss. Now, by the time you're hearing this, they'll have already played the first game between the two of them. But the Rays are a better team than the Red Sox. And I think the Rays have a lot to play for. They want to keep the Yankees at arm's reach. They want to win the division. They don't want to play a playoff game, a wild card playoff game. They have images of a repeat pennant dancing in their head right now. And so the notion of any charging coming in from the Red Sox is something they're probably not going to have, which should bode very, very well for the Oakland A's. Thank you very much. So I'm not going to say that these are easy wins for Tampa Bay, but I will, because the Red Sox are still a talented team. But if you're looking to gain ground, going to play a team like Detroit, who the A's are better than, and the team you're chasing, the Red Sox, are playing a team that are better than them, that is at least the situation you want from a distance as an Oakland A's fan.
For sure. And before I get into any of this, I just want to thank the Tampa Bay Rays for winning Monday's game, which has not been played yet, but thank you for doing that. You're doing God's work. But the Rays are also facing, I believe, the Houston Astros later on in the season, right before they play the A's. So I think Houston goes A's, Tampa Bay Rays, and then A's again to finish out their season. We'll see if the A's can make enough headway in the division. They've been close, but they've got to beat the Houston Astros. They got 6 opportunities to do it. We'll see what happens there. But the Red Sox have been everybody says that they've been playing over their skis the entirety of the season. Have they caught up enough, or is there still some ski left for them to outrun? I don't know. Is that the right analogy? I don't know.
I pretended to understand what the hell you're talking about. It's
Yeah,
part
it
of my
works.
job as a host. Jason's saying something. He's talking about skis, and we got Jean-Claude Keely here. So there you go. Yeah, I'm going deep with my skiing references from the 1970s. So, all right. Well, hey, look at the A's are pursuing the Red Sox right now. The Red Sox have a better record. I think the A's are a better constructed team than the Red Sox. I think it's going to come down to a really crazy September where, as we've seen all year long, there's been ebbs and flows between winning and losing. There's some weeks the Red Sox look like, oh my God, it's 2004 all over again. Sometimes it looks like they've brought back the chicken wings and beer and video games. Sometimes we're imagining the best A's run since the Scott Hatterberg home run, and Brad Pitt's crying listening to his daughter's CD while driving around the docks. And there's sometimes the A's look like a calamity. That's the American League this year, and I don't think it's going to change at all during September. But another thing that certainly isn't going to change is that Locked On A's is going to be a terrific podcast hosted by a terrific podcast host who happens to be my guest today, and his name is Jason Burke, host of Locked On A's, as I fix the caption.
Host of Locked On A's, not
Locked
host
On
of A's.
Host of A's. I don't know why. I don't know why it said that. I don't know
like
why.
it, actually.
Host of A's. Host of A's. So where can people follow you?
I'm on social media by Jason B. You could also do that for the Spotify Green Room app. The show is Locked On A's. Follow us wherever you want to. We're also on YouTube now. We just started doing episodes last week, so those have been lots of fun. And also Locked On A's on Twitter and Instagram. And subscribe to the podcast wherever you want to hear it.
Yep, and you can follow us on the free and easy to use Odyssey app. Please subscribe to us here on YouTube. And if you're enjoying this, you like some of the baseball conversations or some of my rants, please subscribe and tell some of your friends. And if you disagree with my rants, tell some of your friends. And if you really agree with me, write a comment. If you really disagree with me, write a comment. If you want to give me a good review, great. If you want to give me a horrific review, please do. I read those as well. In fact, I find those to be hilarious. Hey, Jason Burke, thanks so much for stopping by and dropping in and doing our Tuesday show. This has been Locked On MLB for the final day of August. Starting tomorrow, it's September. That's how calendars work.
Ooh,
I know.
Gregorian.
Yeah. This year, we're following August with September. I know a guy. We worked it out. This has been Locked On MLB for the 31st day of August, 2021. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.